Hello, and welcome to a bit of a bonus episode for Emperor the Fading Suns, or rather, I guess, a slightly more focused tutorial episode, because I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about technology in Emperor the Fading Suns, because it is definitely one of the more esoteric parts of the game, and it is that way deliberately. At least I think it is. There's no other explanation I can really think of, at least, other than that it is deliberate. Because you, the player, have imperfect knowledge of the technology. There is no easy to find tech tree. You can't, it's the age of the internet, so you can find one, but I would actually discourage you from doing that. Because what they're trying to simulate here is the fact that your nobles, like your house, actually doesn't know how technology works. It's one of those things where technology use among humans has been very deliberately suppressed by both the League and the Church. And so most of the planets at the beginning of the Emperor Wars are actually somewhere around sort of a late 19th, early 20th century level of technology. And when you see stuff like the Power Legions and stuff like that, those sort of represent like ancient family heirlooms. So the cool stuff that you begin with, like the Power Legions and stuff, are irreplaceable, effectively. Never mind like the cruisers and things like that. Think Lost Tech from Battletech, or put the sacred oil and hit the rune marked on in Warhammer type stuff. They don't have the tech warship so much. Actually, they're pretty scared of it. But there's a similar level of sort of technological regression where it exists, but very few people know how it exists, including the noble families. And that's why, if you actually go into your archives here, this is your tech tree. And that's why when you click on them, they're actual books. Like, these are literally books sitting in your library with all this stuff that you know, or at least know of. So like if we look at microbiology here, we know of these things. We know that they exist, but we don't know what they do. And this is why everything is so weird and obscure and very in character. And so like with microbiology, even though we know it, the million invisible deaths from microbes and stuff like that, when the church actually says, oh, these are actually demons. And so there's a profound level of ignorance. And over the course of the Emperor Wars, in like canonical Emperor the Fading Suns, one of the reasons, or the reason they become so destructive, is because all of the noble houses rediscover all of these absolutely terrifying military things. They don't invent anything new, they just rediscover old stuff. And so you start out with things like the Infantry Legion that I just got, where even here that's like, place not your trust in soldiers, be they the cataphracts of the Regency, the skirmishers of the muster, so on and so forth. Everything is like, technology is scary, don't poke around with this sort of stuff, but you're doing it anyhow. And this goes right into the diplomacy as well. That's why with the church, there's this idea around proscribing tech. The church will ban different technologies because it's too spooky. And so if they ban genetic engineering and you're doing it anyhow, they will send troops to go and mess you up and like burn your labs down. So it's a real concern. And so when you're actually looking at your tech tree, these 4 volumes here, volumes 2 through 5, one is basically just fluff and backstory, which is still worth reading totally. But volumes 2 through 5 are the actual tech trees, and they're basically individual volumes that work less like a tree and more akin to something like probably the closest analogy I can think of would be spell schools in Dominions, where you've got sort of these broad-based things that are connected to each other but also separate, and with a dose of the actual like paths in there as well, because you oftentimes you'll need technology from two different volumes here to produce a given unit. Now, I would really encourage you not to go and try and hunt for information on this. I mean, we're in the age of the internet. You could find the tech tree, but I don't think you really want to, because it removes an aspect of the game that is otherwise kind of valuable with that sense of discovery that you get. So if you look at and you're not going at it totally blind either. So if you look at military units, for example, like this Zil Warbeast, this is a really late game unit, but down here, they're going to tell you what you probably want to start poking around at in order to get these guys. And the other thing too is all of these, volumes 2, 3, and 4, are all the theoretical stuff. You go into volume 5, that's the applied sciences. And you see that mirrored in your tech tree here. So you've got the applied technology, which actually lets you build the new units. But then here's your microbiology, here's your physics, here's psychosocial engineering, which I haven't researched yet. I will by next turn though. And then these are all sort of the subcategories within that I can research after opening this up. And they'll lead to new things and all of that sort of stuff. So one of the other interesting things is very rarely are you ever going to research all of the technology. And so when you're looking at stuff like these military units, you're going to start to kind of focus yourself. Like if you start going down sort of the applied, the physics end of things, you're probably going to end up with a lot of like the tanks and stuff like that. The Wolfen we already have, but the Mastiff heavy tank and the hover tank and all those sorts of things all kind of fit in there, but there's a whole lot of cross back and forth, right? So like the Tracker Legion here, this is why I'm researching psychosocial engineering, is to pick up these Tracker Legions before too much longer. It's telling me I need psychosocial engineering to get there. But other ones, like, I keep clicking out by accident, like the Assault Legion. No, that's not a good example. Yeah, here we go. The Gen Warriors. So here you got to research pharmaceuticals, genetics, and electron microscopes. So they need stuff from all 3 of the volumes in order to unlock these guys. They're a pretty late game unit. And so if you want to start like tinkering around with the genetic makeup of your soldiers, you got to have all this sort of stuff under your belt. Pharmaceuticals makes sense, genetics of course, and then electron microscopes. I mean, let's face it, you're poking around with the genome, you're going to need a pretty darn good microscope to do it. So you definitely need to kind of go into all the different branches, but what I would recommend doing, especially as you make your way through the game, is read through these units, kind of pick up on what sounds interesting to you, and go in that direction. Try to start cracking open the tech tree in that general area, right? And eventually you'll start getting some of the cool stuff, like with special forces. I'm researching psychosocial engineering. That's going to get me closer to special forces. If I didn't have the ceramic armor, it would tell me to research that as well. And so you're going to need to dabble in all these and unlock a whole bunch within these first 3 volumes before you can start cracking out military units. The other thing that's going to kind of limit you and your ability to research all of the things is the fact that when you go into tech again here and you go into your database, you'll see here strike. So my database is everything that I already know. And what you do is if you strike a technology, it removes it. But as long as you're maintaining that technology, it requires points from your lab. And so like right now, my lab is only researching at 81 points per turn because I've unlocked all these different technologies. They have a maintenance cost to them. And even though I have the bonus research and stuff like that, the fact that I only have one lab is cutting into that. And so over time, as you research more and more and more, your labs actually become less efficient. Labs are also quite expensive. So if I click on the lab here, I believe, yeah, it costs 575 Firebirds per turn. So you can't turn around and just mass labs either. Like it would be one thing if you could just hammer out lab after lab after lab, but every turn it's going to cost you almost 600 Firebirds or credits or whatever. $600. They are technically called Firebirds. So you hit a point of diminishing returns, which can make it quite challenging even to sometimes reach the late game units. Now, something else to keep in mind is that especially if you're playing on the lower difficulties, you can win the game without ever reaching the end of a tech tree. You can win perfectly well with sort of the mid-tech units. There's some really effective ones there, and the AI is going to use a lot of them as well. Because the other thing too is, of course, the more expensive the units are, the more they cost to produce. But what you can do to help mitigate a little bit of this is, again, in the tech tree itself, in your database, when you strike something, it no longer has the maintenance cost. And you can see the maintenance cost here. So microbiology costs 1, physics costs 1, energy physics costs 2, infantry legions cost 4. And so especially if you've got a bunch of units that you aren't using anymore, then strike that tech and you don't have to worry about it again. If you want it again, you have to research it again, but you can literally just delete the hard drives that have all the information about infantry legions on them and no longer pay that maintenance cost. So that's something else that's important to keep in mind, especially as you get later into the game, is to periodically prune your tech tree of the stuff that you don't use. There are a few things that allows for, where is it here? Oh yeah, allows gunships to be built in factories. There are a few things that allow units directly to be built, like energy physics lets you build gunships. Composite armor lets you build starports and mega chassis allows you to build missile launchers. So there's a few techs that you'll get. No, I don't want to strike it. There's a few techs that you'll get in the theory end of things that will give you new units, but there's not a ton. And it's mostly just ones that don't quite fit under an applied technology. So yeah, it's a weird system for sure. And I would really encourage you, it's tough to tutorialize it beyond like, hey, if you get the ceramic armor or composite armor and infantry legions, you've got a good early game infantry unit. And if you get psychosocial engineering, and I think it's Prana Bindu, you can get the tracker legion, but we'll get to that shortly. So beyond that though, just experiment with what seems cool. And if you find that your tech is getting too expensive to maintain, then go through and prune the tree down. It's a bit of a weird system, but it's very, very cool once you kind of get used to it. The other thing too is different technologies are actually maintained in different labs. And I thought there was a way to look that up. Like see what tech is housed in what lab. And that really only becomes relevant if you're dealing with proscribed technology, because the church will specifically target those labs to attack and destroy, because they want to like burn the hard drives that tell you how to make like chemical weapons. So that's something else to keep in mind too. I'm gonna need to do a bit more digging straight up because I don't remember. I do know that it is linked to specific labs. Like right now I only have one, so of course everything that I have is sort of living in this one lab. But as you go on, it spreads out to multiple different labs, and like you'll have a lab that has all your information about pharmaceuticals on its hard drive, or in its library, I guess, literally, because you've got books. So that's something else to keep in mind. I think that's all I want to say about technology right now. It's an interesting system, and it's very intimidating, but I would really, really, really encourage you just to experiment. Try different stuff, and rely on looking at the military units and being like, hey, these Ranger Legions sound really cool. What do I need to get them? So pharmaceuticals, electron microscopes, psychosocial engineering, so on and so forth. It'll lead you down some interesting paths for sure. And I would really encourage you to try and experiment with it rather than looking specifically for a guide. Just because there's so much other cool stuff that you can do. And it is kind of nice to find it naturally, I guess. Okay, anyhow, I think that's probably about it. I'm going to try and record the next proper episode here now, which, just so you know, is going to involve getting ready to attack Veracruz, because we are basically finished taking over Aragon here. All that's really left are a couple of ruins. We got one ruins here and ruins somewhere else down there. And so we'll just gather up some forces. We've actually got almost enough forces like right handy by to take both of those. And yeah, then we'll go from there. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode with actual gameplay. Until then, cheers.